Welcome back to Your Sister, the Doctor, the podcast where we redefine women's health. I'm Dr. Abby Rose, and today we are doing something very different. So, the first 3 episodes, if you've been following along, we've been spelling out the word recipe to your health because that is the season that we're in. We're going through what kind of things would be the best recipe to your health as women. And today we are taking a little intermission, taking a little pause before we get to the next letter, I. So we've had R, reclaiming rest. We've had E, emphasis on movement over exercise. And we've had C, connecting to cycles. And before we get to letter I, we are going to do a quick little intermission. And we are going to do a Q&A. So I've had some of my listeners send in some really, really, really great questions, guys. And it's made me dive even deeper into these topics. And I've learned a lot, actually, and I hope you do too. So we're just going to get right into the Q&A. I'm so excited, you guys. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, like, share this with your friends, share this with your mom, your sister, anybody that you think would benefit from hearing any of this. And my goal with this podcast is to reach as many women as I can because women's health is something that is so underspoken about, under-researched, and the more we can talk about it, the better things will be. So stay tuned for next week. We're going to be going into the letter I. We're going to finish out the word recipe every Friday. This is a holiday weekend, so happy long weekend if you celebrate or have the days off. I've been really enjoying this rest, and so I thought, what better way to break up the season by doing a little Q&A on our little rest as we are enjoying this holiday weekend. Let's get into it. We are going to learn so much about rest, movement, and cycles today, and a lot of these points are just so good. Thank you if you submitted a question, and we will definitely be doing another round of Q&A. So if you are interested, or if you're listening to the season of the recipe to your wellness and you have questions about letter I through E, so the last half of the word recipe, please jot those down and you can reach out to me and send me a voice memo, and I would love to come on here and answer your questions. So without further ado, let's get into the show, besties. This is Your Sister, the Doctor. Okay, I've had some of my listeners send in some questions. So I'm going to play the question and we'll listen and then I'll answer it. Okay? So this question comes from my dear friend Corinne, Dr. Z, or Dance Doc. Follow her on Instagram if you're interested in anything dance PT related. But she asked some really great questions. So here we go.
So I went to the dentist the other day and they told me that I need to buy a night guard because I'm clenching my teeth. But to me, that's treating a symptom. Like we're just using the night guard to protect my teeth from the clenching rather than stopping the source of the problem, the clenching. So do you have any sister or doctor advice for calming my brain down before bed and maybe reducing my clenching at night?
Corinne, I am so happy that you brought up the jaw because I'm a pelvic floor PT, and believe it or not, there is a lot of relation between the jaw and the pelvic floor, which that blew my mind at first when I learned about this, but I want to talk a little bit about it because your question relates to that. So you'll see in a minute. But the jaw and the pelvic floor have a similar fascial connection. If you Google a picture, or maybe I'll just put it up on the screen somewhere, it's called the deep front line fascia. Essentially in your body, there's certain groups of fascia, and this deep front line of fascia goes across the whole body, but it essentially connects the jaw and the pelvic floor. If you have tightness in your jaw, that may contribute to some pelvic floor tension, which is really interesting. Not only that, there's also a nerve relationship there. So your jaw is controlled by the trigeminal nerve, which is a cranial nerve, and the pelvic floor, vagus nerve. So when there are some fluctuations in the trigeminal nerve that may affect the vagus nerve. That's getting really nerdy, guys. But if you know anything about cranial nerves, if you are an anatomy girly, you know what I'm talking about. But basically, there's similar nerve connection. And then something else that is so important is if you have tightness in your jaw, you are likely breathing shallowly. You're not taking deep breaths. So if you're not taking deep breaths, you're using your chest a lot, you're not using your diaphragm. And the first thing I do in pelvic floor PT for everyone is teach them how to breathe with their diaphragm. So rib cage expansion, breathing into the belly rib cage back, kind of like expanding like a balloon. So not using your chest so much. So if you are using your chest a lot and you have tightness in your jaw, your pelvic floor is not expanding and doing what it should be doing as well. So there is relationship with your breathing. So fascia, nerves, breathing. Let me see if there's anything else. And the most important is your nervous system response to stress. So, bruxism is grinding your teeth or clenching your jaw, and especially before bed. That sounds like what has been going on. So, if you are having a high stress situation, if your nervous system is in fight or flight, your jaw might be a little bit more overactive, which that also happens with the pelvic floor. They've done studies and shown that if there's a stressful stimulus shown to participants, their shoulders clench up, their jaw clenches up, their pelvic floor clenches up. And then you remove the stressful stimulus and maybe your shoulders relax, maybe your jaw stays tight, maybe your pelvic floor stays tight, and it stays like that because of the stress that you're under. So it's not just you. And I totally agree that using a mouth guard is not getting to the root of the problem. So I would recommend any stress management techniques that you can do. And I know life as a resident, guys, she's becoming board certified, is very stressful. So if there's any increased stressors in your life and you notice that you're grinding your teeth more, that might be something to think about. So just remember that chronic stress is going to heighten your fight or flight or your sympathetic nervous system, and it's your body's way of protecting you. So muscles go on guard because of that. So just know there's nothing wrong with you. It's literally just your body doing what it needs to do. Okay? So as far as ways to fall asleep at night, I actually talk about this with my patients a lot because a lot of times your bladder is waking you up at night, and I have to kind of guide my patients through what are the best ways to fall back asleep and ignore your bladder if it's like a false alarm. So, something that I recently learned about is called cognitive shuffling, if you look it up. Basically, you choose a word and you go through each letter of the word and think of another word. So, if I picked the word goat, okay, then I'm going to think of giraffe. Then I'm going to think of octopus. Then I'm going to think of turtle. Then I'm going to think of, oh, wait, I skipped a letter. I'm going to think of ant, then turtle. And I'm going to go through this word so many times. You can pick a category if you want to make it fun. I just did a bunch of animals just now. So you're going to go through the word as many times as you can until you can't think of anything. And then hopefully you fall back asleep. So that's called cognitive shuffling. It's meant to be kind of like an unbiased word or like no emotional connection to that word. You can always count backwards by 3 from 100, sing a song, make a list, do whatever you need to do to try to distract your brain. But I really like the cognitive shuffling one. That's something new that I learned. And then you can also focus on deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. You could do a body scan, scan from head to toe. Just notice, are you holding any tension anywhere? And if you are holding any tension anywhere, see if you can send your breath there. So, like with the pelvic floor, for example, if you're breathing into your rib cage and expanding here, can you send your air to the pelvic floor and help it relax? Same thing with the jaw. Can you just like do a little massage and like let it relax a little bit? Listening to calming music or white noise or rain sounds or whatever, sometimes that can help. we're actually going to talk a little bit more about sleep strategies moving on. So thank you so much, Corinne, for your question. All right, we're going to go to the next one. This is so fun, guys. I'm so excited. My next question is from my Virginia Beach queen, Haley, and she is asking a question about her cycle.
I experience really bad PMS symptoms and completely lose my appetite and have trouble sleeping. What are some exercises or things you would recommend to eat during that time?
All right, Haley, thank you for your question. I paired this next to Corinne's because it's very similar. Okay, Haley, so what you're experiencing is not uncommon because when you're on your menstrual cycle, sometimes it's really hard to fall asleep, and that is, you're not making that up. So, prostaglandins are the chemicals behind your cramps. So, if you are cramping more, you are going to have trouble falling asleep. You're going to be more restless. In addition, when you have lower progesterone, which happens during your menstrual cycle, you have a lower sedative effect, so you're not going to fall asleep as much. And your body temperature is changing, so your body doesn't like to sleep in warmer conditions. So if your body temperature is going up or down or fluctuating, then that's also going to interrupt your sleep. So some things that you can do to help with this: sleep in a cool bedroom, 65 to 67 degrees, with breathable bedding. Okay. So a cool bedroom. Create a bedtime ritual, make some tea, have some magnesium, do some reading, something to like calm your nervous system down and get you ready for bed. Take a break from your screen so that we can produce melatonin. We talked all about that in the first episode. Do a gentle stretch, get a weighted blanket, calm down the nervous system. If your cramps are still there, maybe take some meds like right before bed just to help kind of reduce your cramping. So those are kind of some things that you can do to help you fall asleep better. I really like using one of those like microwavable, mine's like a turtle, microwavable like rice things that you can like heat up and then sleep and lay on. So when I have cramps, that's what I do. Or like a heating blanket or something like that. But yeah, I hope that helps. As far as lack of appetite, that one is a little tricky. So try to have frequent small meals that are easy to digest, like smoothies or soups or something that like won't make you feel like it's really hard to put down food. But you have to continue to stay hydrated and continue to fuel your body, because if you ignore that, then you're not going to feel as good. So definitely make sure you're staying on top of your nutrition and your hydration. Having some tea, like ginger or peppermint, can help reduce any nausea that you might be feeling. And choosing nutrient-dense foods that are full of iron because of the blood loss. So that could be like spinach, lentils, red meats, things like that. And then trying to eat by a schedule versus your appetite. So if you know that during your cycle you always have a lower appetite, then make sure you're just timing your meals every 3 to 4 hours and keeping them small so that you're constantly fueling your body. Okay, take care, Haley. All right. Next person is Katie from
My
Chesapeake,
question
Virginia.
is about movement, specifically during office work days. I know you said all movement is good. Whatever you can do is not a bad option. So I'm not saying that there's one that's necessarily a bad option, but would you say that it's more beneficial to go and use your hour-long lunch break or so to go on a walk midday versus getting up every like hour, hour and a half or so and just doing small bits of movement throughout the office day?
All right, Katie, thank you so much for your submission. And I love this question. And I know we kind of talked about it in the movement episode, and that was kind of the whole point, was doing small bits of movement throughout the day, those exercise snacks. But I'm really happy you asked this question because there's a difference between going outside and, enjoying the weather and getting up and down throughout the day in the office. And both are beneficial, yes. And there's pros and cons to both. So, if you are, say, in an office all day, just mentally, it is so important to take breaks and get outside and leave the building. Because even as a PT working in an outpatient clinic, I have windows. I'm moving around all day, but like being in a room doing pelvic floor treatments all day, I need to go outside on my long days and sit in my car or go for a walk or just feel the sunshine. I mean, get the vitamin D, like just be outside. I don't care if it's like cold or rainy or whatever, like I'll go outside. However, you know, it is beneficial to get up throughout the day and try not to sit all day because we talked about how a sedentary lifestyle is so dangerous. So I would balance the two. Like if you're able to get up throughout your work day and do a couple little movement snacks and then also get out on your lunch and go for a walk, that's great. I was looking at the research about this actually right before I started recording, and there are mixed results in the science on the benefits of going outside and working out versus doing an indoor workout. So, scientifically, there's not a whole lot of evidence supporting that one is better than the other. However, there were some studies talking about how doing exercise outside helps with your cognitive function and helps you with your memory and things like that. So, there are some like mental benefits for going outside versus doing things inside. If you're doing things inside, you have the pros that you have a stable environment. Like you don't have to worry about the elements. You don't have to worry about the weather being bad. Like it's more consistent. And if you have the habit of every couple hours getting up and doing a couple body weight squats or something like that, then you're going to stay more consistent with that versus, okay, I'm going to go for a walk at my lunch every day. And then, one day it's a torrential downpour outside and you're not going to go for a walk that day. So, it's a balance, right? So I don't think necessarily, in my opinion, that there's one that's better than the other. I think what we talked about in the movement episode, where we were talking about movement snacks and object in motion stays in motion, trying not to be in the same posture all day is really important. But I think going for a walk on your lunch break is totally okay. And if you have an hour for your lunch, eat for 30 minutes and rest, and then go for a walk for 30 minutes or something like that. Ultimately, listen to the seasons, listen to your body, listen to your cycle, and make your best judgment based on that. And honestly, you and I are both outdoor girlies, so keep doing your outdoor walks. I think we both understand the benefits, like mentally, on being outside. So I would recommend to keep doing that. And, throughout the rest of your day, seeing how many little movement snacks you can get throughout the rest of your day if you're like at your desk. So ultimately, the research shows that doing small bouts of exercise throughout the day is more beneficial than one longer bout of exercise once during the day. However, you and I both know the benefits of going outside. So I think just do a mix of both. Okay, good talk. Thanks, Katie. All right, we'll go into the next one. So I actually got another submission from Dr. Z, and I really liked both of these questions, so I wanted to include both. So this one is about cycles.
I know we haven't talked too much about birth control, but I think I'm doing something crazy with mine, and I need some sister and doctor advice. I'll start by saying I'm not presently sexually active, so it's not really serving the purpose of birth control for the sake of birth control. But before I went on birth control, my cycles were super irregular. Like I would have them every 2 weeks or every 8 weeks, and they'd either be super heavy or like really light for one day. So I got on birth control to make it more regular, which it always is. My period always starts on the second day of my placebo. But because I'm not using it for birth control, I'm not super consistent with it. So if I don't take it for a little while or I miss a few days here and there, I can make my period so that it's every 5 or 6 weeks instead of 4. So my question is that bad? Should I stop doing it? Should I be more consistent? And by doing that, am I spending more time in different phases, or like what am I doing to my body?
What are you doing to your body? Thanks again for the question. So hormonal birth control, when you're on the pill, it actually suppresses ovulation. So you're not actually having a true cycle. You're not going through those 4 phases. which I know. However, you can still cycle sync. You can still follow the season kind of outline. You're still going to have a bleed, and that bleed is not your menstrual cycle. That's called withdrawal bleed, which is caused by stopping hormones. So basically, when you take birth control, this suppresses your hormones, so it flattens all the effects. Okay, so you're not having that typical rise and fall of progesterone, estrogen, all the things that happens during the cycle. So you're more in a hormonal stable state. So when you're taking birth control inconsistently, you're going between that flatline, hormonal, stable, consistent state and maybe dipping back into your natural rhythm of what your body wants to do with like the natural cycles. So if you are, taking the pill a couple days and then not having the pill for a couple days, you might be getting a mix of symptoms that are, that stable state and then actually what your body wants to do if there was no pill. So you're kind of doing a mix of both. So it might feel a little like chaotic or irregular, or it's just not like consistent, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not ideal either, just because, your body craves rhythm. And if you were taking the pill for a little bit and then you're coming off the pill for a little bit and then taking the pill for a little bit, your body's kind of like, flatline hormones. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, your hormones are going crazy and then flatline again. So kind of choosing one or the other would be best to try to be more consistent. So if you are taking hormonal birth control, regardless of what the reason is, trying to take that consistently is going to be helpful versus taking it inconsistently. And like, yes, if you talk to your doctor, and certain doctors will say, to manage symptoms, to skip the withdrawal placebo week so you don't have a period. Some people do that. I don't prescribe medication like that, but I know that's how some people manage like endometriosis and things like that. So you're not going through the 4 phases at all. But if you delay the pill for like 24 to 48 hours, you might be waking up hormones, and then you're getting your body's like natural hormonal cycle back. And then, so if you're waking up hormones, ovulation might occur, and then you might be getting symptoms. So I know somebody who like ran out of their birth control for a week, and after just a week, they took an ovulation test and they were ovulating. So, and this is after them being on birth control for 2 years. So the effects are kind of immediate. Like once you come off birth control, like you can ovulate right away. So that's pretty interesting. So ultimately, like it's not dangerous, but it's just going to create like inconsistency with your cycle, which is going to be harder to track your symptoms. And even if you are on hormonal birth control, I do recommend that you track like your cycle symptoms and, say that your menstrual phase is the window where you're doing your withdrawal bleed, and then kind of track it based on that. Because, there are still cycles going on in your body, and you do feel different during certain times of the month, and it is beneficial to still track. But if you are being inconsistent with how often you're taking the pill, that's just going to, who knows what cycle or season you're in, right? Who knows if you started to ovulate for, the 48 hours that you didn't take the pill. So it's interesting. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but like if you want more consistency in your life, I recommend either choosing one or the other. And talking to your doctor, of course. Okay, next question is from my Norfolk dwelling, kayaking, chiropractor, back cracking. I'm just kidding. She doesn't actually crack backs, but my awesome friend, Laura. I'm so excited that you submitted something to the podcast. So let's listen to what Laura has to ask about cycles.
Okay, Dr. Abby. My question is this. What major lifestyle choices may contribute to like a shift in a menstrual cycle? Or like can the seasons or climate of the year affect a menstrual cycle? I am very regular and I've tracked my cycle for years since discontinuing hormonal contraceptives. But sometimes I experience a shift, getting my cycle over a week early, 2 weeks late, or more off routine. And these shifts always end up hitting me even harder with more fatigue and pain and discomfort, and I'm just wondering if I'm doing something wrong. So please let me know.
Thanks, Loa. Okay, so I love this question. Laura. Thank you so much for your submission. So I did some research on this because I actually wasn't really sure. But yes, your cycle can be impacted by the seasons, which is so interesting. So vitamin D and light exposure. Longer summer days, you have a longer circadian rhythm, which makes sense. So your cycles might feel more regular. Darker winters can disrupt your cycle. Because you have lower vitamin D in the winter, you might have worse symptoms, worse PMS, more irregular, more painful periods. That's crazy. That's crazy that the sun impacts that. And then, not to mention, SAD, seasonal affective disorder. I totally have that. That affects your period as well, because lower serotonin in the winter can worsen your PMS mood symptoms, which totally makes sense as well. As far as temperature goes, heat can worsen your bloating and your fatigue, and then the cold can intensify menstrual cramping. So I like summer already. And then this is also interesting. Fertility patterns. People ovulate more in the springtime versus the winter. And historically, conception peaks during the winter and spring. So those are some really interesting facts that I didn't know. So I'm really glad you asked that question. And I love the part that you asked about when your cycles are irregular, that you're hit with more fatigue and pain than usual. Because actually having an early or a late cycle can impact the symptoms that you're having, which is so interesting as well, which I didn't know this either. So the key difference is when you have a shorter cycle, it's shorter and more painful, and it's sharper. So your hormone crash is sharper. You get more mood swings, irritability, headaches, things like that. Your cramps can be more intense because there's a sudden increase in prostaglandins, which cause the cramps, which I talked about with Haley's question. Your bleeding is lighter and shorter because the lining has less time to build. So, I mean, that's a good thing. And then the energy dips are harder and feel more abrupt. So that's with a shorter cycle. So some things that you can do when you've noticed that might be happening: prioritize blood sugar levels, magnesium, vitamin B, things like that to kind of help stabilize your, reduce headaches and things like that. Doing some gentle movement is always helpful. So yoga, stretching, walking, things like that to help ease your cramps and stabilize your energy. Taking extra rest during this time, like short naps or earlier bedtimes. And of course, prioritizing hydration and electrolytes and things like that to help with headaches and cramps and more of those abrupt symptoms that are happening. Okay? And then on the flip side, a longer cycle is going to, the key difference here is that you're having a prolonged buildup. So you're going to have extended bleeding and extended PMS symptoms. So the uterine lining is thicker. It's building up more. So we're going to have heavier flows and more clotting there. You're going to have prolonged PMS symptoms. So more bloating, more cramping, more irritability, more sore breasts, cravings. Your cramps are going to feel worse and longer because there's more prostaglandins lining that uterus. And then your fatigue and your mood is going to feel really low for a while. It can drag on before the bleeding even starts. So during these times, you want to prioritize anti-inflammatory foods, so like omega-3s, which is like salmon, chia seeds, walnuts, things like that. Leafy greens, turmeric, ginger, to lower your prostaglandins. Heat therapy using a heating pad or a warm bath for cramps. Stress reduction like deep breathing, meditation, which can lower your cortisol and help you with the PMS symptoms that you may be experiencing. And then cutting excess salt, alcohol, things that may irritate like your bloating and your tenderness. So the key difference here, if you have a shorter cycle, then we want to promote stability. And then if you have a longer cycle, we want to reduce inflammation and release tension. So thank you so much for that question, Laura. That was amazing. And I didn't know about these things. So I hope you took notes. Actually, I will probably post a graphic on this on Instagram so that you guys can share and save that. Okay, next. All right, next up we have my dear friend Elena, and she's also asking about the menstrual cycle.
Hey, my question is, what does cycle tracking look like in practice, and how can it help women better understand their energy, mood, or sleep? For someone who's new to this, what's a good way to start tracking their cycle, and what kinds of patterns might they begin to notice? Can you walk us through some simple strategies for cycle tracking and share what people often discover about themselves in the process?
Okay. Thank you so much, Elena. Elena from Strasbourg. Love it. Okay. So Elena asked some really great questions that I did not cover from my menstrual course from the last episode. So I want to go over a concept called menstrual melimina. Guys, that took so many takes. Menstrual melimina. So that is a term that refers to the physical and emotional changes women experience during their luteal phase prior to their menstrual cycle, or PMS, essentially. So it's not always a bad thing. And these are just characteristics that tell a woman, oh, my period's about to start. So that's like breast tenderness, water retention, changes in mood, changes in energy, changes in libido, cramping. These can be mildly disruptive, or sometimes they can even be positive. By definition, this does not interfere with your daily life. So that's something different if like you're having debilitating cramping and things like that. Symptoms change over time. So as your body changes, tracking is really useful to identify these changes. So why do we even want to track our menstrual cycle? And there's a lot of good reasons too. So to understand your own body and the symptoms, I think that's the biggest one, is that so you can understand yourself. And then also so that you can communicate with your healthcare provider so they can give you the best quality care. Because if you go in and you know a little bit more about what your body is doing from season to season, cycle to cycle, your healthcare provider can probably give you better guidance on what to do. Your period is a fifth vital sign, so it identifies underlying health. So things like your diabetes, thyroid, bowel things, like if you're not having a period, then maybe something's out of whack, right? It can help identify underlying gynecological issues, identify differences in vaginal discharge. It can identify your path toward menopause if you're older. It can tell you if it can help track fertility if you're younger and trying to conceive. So there's lots of different reasons why we should be tracking our cycle. And it can be very overwhelming. So don't let tracking become a fixation or a stress. So we talk about why we should track. So what should you track and how should you track it? And honestly, it depends on what you want to know about yourself. So I recommend only tracking 3 to 5 symptoms at a time. 5 is actually a little high. 1 to 3. Track 1 to 3 symptoms at a time and track them for the next 3 months. And then if that gives you some data, then keep tracking it. If it doesn't give you any good data, then pick something else. Only track the things that are really relevant to you. So pick like your top 3 things that you want to track and track those, okay? So I think I'm going to upload a graphic that will talk about tracking, but there is a giant list of things that you can track. I will probably put it here somewhere in the podcast. Things like sleep, exercise, digestion, cravings, hair, skin, stool, mental motivation, confidence, pain, emotions, flow, vaginal discharge, stressful events. And, you know, with tracking, there's so many great apps out there, but you can also do this as paper tracking too, because it's a little bit more private. You can get a little artistic with it, which would be really great, especially for you, Elena, my artistic friend. Elena's an artist. Go follow her. But anyway, it can help downregulate your nervous system if you're doing something more creative. So making a paper tracker might be kind of a fun way to do that. So if you want a little bit of homework, this is extra credit, guys. If you want to create a artistic menstrual cycle tracker and pick like 3 to 5 symptoms that you want to track over the next 3 months and make it artistic and pretty and girly and woo, menstrual power, then you can do that. And then my course also gave me some really great journal prompts for tracking your menstrual cycle. So if you want to get a pen and paper and fill this out, mood and energy tracker for your menstruation. So challenges I faced today, solutions I discovered today, what felt good today, what I needed today, what I appreciated today, what felt easy today, what felt hard today, what support I needed today, what support was I able to give today. So ultimately, though, the most important thing about tracking your cycle is to actually look at your data, because if we are tracking your cycle and not looking at our data, then why are we doing it? So we want to make sure that we are analyzing our data and seeing what kind of adjustments or considerations we need to make based on those things. What happens and on what day does it happen? Using your data to predict what may happen next month. Start making preparations, start preparing for challenges that you may be facing, start taking advantage of opportunities that you have to prepare yourself for an easier menstrual experience. So thank you so much, Elena, for the question. And let's move on to our last one, which also ties into Elena's very beautifully. This question comes from the iconic California dwelling engineer friend. Her name is Missy. So Missy, let's hear what you have to ask.
Hi, Abby. So my question is about cycles. More recently, I've started to notice that I should be looking at my energy level at like a monthly basis or trying to line it up with my period. Whereas previously, I was really looking at myself on a 24-hour basis and just realizing that like one day I would wake up ready to seize the day. I would get all my work done. I'd hit a great workout. And then another day I would snooze my alarm, like have brain fog all day, and then felt like I had to take a nap in the afternoon. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on A, kind of like tracking that energy across a broader period of time, and then B, what are tips and tricks on how to cushion myself when I am having like a day where I don't have high energy and I'm just like dragging?
Yes, thank you so much, Missy. You need to start your own podcast, girl. You're so good at this. Okay, so I love this question. So, Missy, I love that you are tracking more on a cyclical month-to-month pattern versus that 24-hour cycle pattern. That's awesome. Love that. It definitely reduces the pressure to seize the day every 24 hours, because as women, we are cyclical beings and we are not seizing the day every single day. And if you are, then you're a man. I'm just kidding. But if you are, you are on some other level. But okay. So the great thing about tracking your energy throughout the month is it lets you know when you are more, it can help you plan out your work, your workouts, your structure of your daily life, your socializing, your rest, all very strategically. And if you're very type A and you want to plan out these things, then you can use menstrual tracking as a tool to help you do that, which is amazing. So yes, I think tracking your energy across a broad span of time, and going back to the previous question that Elena asked as well, going through and tracking your energy would be a really great menstrual symptom for you to track. So track it throughout all 4 phases, or if you're on hormonal contraceptives, track it either way. Throughout the month, track your energy level and give yourself, like, on a scale of 0 to 10, how are you feeling? That would be a super easy way to do it. 10 is like 100% energy. You're going to go for the top number on your movement pyramid. You're going to go to a boxing hit workout cycling class or whatever, and then at the bottom here it's like you were laying in bed eating chips and cuddling with your kitty because it is not a good day. So, you know, rate yourself on like a qualitative scale like that, and then maybe you make it like a little calendar and you just write down the number on each day, and then you're like, oh, you know, it's weird because on this week, like, I was like a bunch of 4s and 5s, and then I was like a 6 and 7, and then, you know, you can kind of track it like that. If you're more of a visual person, if you like spreadsheets, you could do it that way and then like kind of plot your data. I know, Missy, you're an engineer. You've got that STEM brain. So anyway, yeah, so I would definitely track that. Track your energy, and then maybe pick 2 to 3 other things that complement your energy to track as well. And then as far as cushioning, I love this concept. So thank you for bringing this up. I'm going to give you 7 tips to help you with that. So number 1, micro prioritization. So scheduling 2 to 3 key tasks on your low energy day that you must do, and then you can postpone or delegate the rest. And then number 2, energy friendly scheduling. So saving your high focus tasks for your peak energy, and then your low energy phases, you're doing lighter work, admin work, things like that. So number 3, nutrition and hydration. So eating small balanced meals, snacks every 3 to 4 hours, prioritizing protein, healthy fats, slow digesting carbs, and staying hydrated. Hydrate, 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 baby. And then 4, movement hacks. So think short walks, light yoga, gentle stretching, things that will boost your circadian rhythm without draining your energy. Number 5, rest and recover, schedule in some power naps, intentional breaks, meditation, any grounding exercises you can do, legs up on the wall, things like that. And then cognitive cushioning, planning in advance for lower energy days to avoid stress and guilt. And then finally, my favorite, mindset shift. So the days that you have lower energy, that does not mean you're lazy. That means you are being strategic and smart about how you are planning your tasks. On the days that you have lower energy, knowing that that is a day of rest for you. You don't have to get up out of bed and seize the day. So knowing that, it's all strategic and all part of the plan. And it's part of your body's plan because we're cyclical beings. So thank you so much for that question, Missy. Beautiful. Chef's kiss. Okay. So like we talked about, log your energy daily for a few months to see your own patterns and adjust the dates accordingly. Pre-plan your tasks to assign the higher focus tasks on the appropriate days, building in cushion strategies like naps, meditation, grounding. Even if it's like one of my therapists told me about this technique called the physiological sigh. It's literally just taking a deep breath and then doing another deep breath and then letting it go. So it's like and that feels amazing. So just like doing things like that, sprinkling it in throughout your day if you don't have the time to like actually go and take rest. Like literally just sit at your desk and breathe. And then allowing flexibility, because this is just a guideline. It's not a full-on strict schedule. So knowing that this is a guideline and you can work with your body and your cycles to help you strategically plan out your schedule. All right, guys, so we got through all the questions, and I just wanted to follow up because you guys really loved our rest menus and our movement pyramids, and I am going to drop a free template that you guys can download and upload to Instagram so you can put like your little emojis on it and stuff and post it to your story and tag me. And not only that, we are going to add in a cycle compass, so I'm super excited. Watch out for a video on that, and I will explain that to you as well. I am so excited for next episode. We're going to be talking about the letter I. Thank you guys so much for this casual Q&A episode. Remember, you are the expert of you. Thank you guys so much for all the questions that you asked. We are done with this episode, and I will see you next time.